Welcome back to the JW5 podcast. Today I have Mr. Taj Deshaun on with me. Man, super excited to get on here and talk with you. It's been a little bit obviously weird for me. Now I'm on the flip side of this talking to you, but I want to give you the floor. Share your knowledge a little bit, where you came from, what you're doing now, and let these viewers know what's going on.
RJ, first of all, thank you for having me, man. I feel honored that you invited me onto the platform. You know I had to come on repping JW5.
I love the shirt.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you sending this out to me. Just so the listeners know, my name is Taj Deshaun. I'm a former college football player at Stony Brook University. Now I'm an athlete career transition coach. I work with former athletes to help them not just get through the transition of figuring out who they are after the game, but also helping them figure out what they want to do, mapping out their careers, whether that's getting into the corporate world, starting a business, maybe a mixture of both. I help them do a little bit of all that. I'm the host of the ThriveAfterSports podcast. I got a book called ThriveAfterSports. It was just released in December. Your copy's coming soon, RJ. I'm shipping them out this week.
I appreciate that. Can't wait to read it.
Absolutely, man. That's a little bit about me. Yeah, man. Happy to dive into anything you want to talk about.
No, first off, congratulations. As I start up, I know the struggles that go through it, the ups and downs, do I really want to do this? This is so hard, all the kind of negative stuff that can come with starting your own business. But the success and the flourishness that you've had over the last 6 months, especially since we've connected and grown this relationship, has been truly inspiring and incredible to see. So congratulations on that and your new book. And I know that's really taken off for you, and definitely something that I'm going to hop on here once I get this thing up and running and start to share my story as well. But let's dive right into it. When's the first time that you heard a mental performance or an elite mindset type deal?
I mean, honestly, man, I didn't really take a deep dive into it until after my football career, which obviously in hindsight, I'm kicking myself because with having that knowledge at that time, it would have definitely allowed me to have a better career on the field. But really, man, I sort of dove into it after I finished playing, because after I went through my, dark night of the soul, my depression of figuring out who I was after the game, I really dove headfirst into personal development, just mindset, really just trying to develop myself into the best version of myself as I was figuring out who I was going to become. So yeah, man. I was a late bloomer.
Awesome. Yeah, no, hey, seriously. And one thing I always read is you may not like the story that's been told so far, but at any point you can change the ending to that. And I think that's something incredible that you've done and you realized. And what we've talked about, kind of better me, better we. Man, if I can be the best version of myself for anyone else that I come in contact with, then everyone wins on that. So, man, much appreciated for you of finding that. I think that's really, really cool. For you to have success in what you do, obviously you have to have an elite mindset on that. Why is it so crucial for your success?
I think, and this is what's so great about being an athlete in business, right? I think it's crucial because, like we were just talking about before we started recording, you need that elite mindset to be able to rise above yourself, to get out of your own way at times. I think we have an advantage as athletes in being able to kind of bring that elite mindset into what we do after the game, because certain things that may hold up other people, especially when you're talking about something like just diving into entrepreneurship, we face so much adversity throughout our careers that we know how to be able to bring that athletic mindset, that elite mindset into whatever we want to do in life. So, I mean, we were talking about it, man. There's things this morning that most people might have thrown in the towel and said, hey, this whole entrepreneurship thing isn't for me. But it's important to really realize about yourself, right? That we have that elite mindset and be able to bring that forth and call upon it at will, almost like a superpower, to be able to overcome those obstacles and keep doing what we need to do to keep pushing forward on that mission, man. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's just what came to mind.
No, yeah, it's beautiful. And one thing I truly try to do every single day is control what I can control. And that could be very frustrating, especially when you're running your own business, trying to get it started up, and the to-do list that you have, all of a sudden you think you're knocking things off, and you turn around and there's 10 more things added on. And you're like, man, okay, I can't control that right now, but let's put that to the side. I know I'm going to get to it and go from there. And I think that's why businesses especially love hiring athletes, because we've gone through that failure. We know how to handle that failure. And then at the end of the day, we know how we work. We've been in those
Hmm.
situations where our bodies tighten up, our mind starts to race, and the self doubt that comes in from there. And it's like, hey, look, no, I got the inner faith and the inner confidence in myself that I can do this. Now let's, road map it out, and let's dominate it. So no, it's beautiful. What do you think your top two or three habits are, that you either got from sports or that you've learned in the business world now of what you do that help you keep that elite mindset?
Oh man, there's so many. Top two, I think it's the ability to just stop and pause and reflect. And I'm not much of a meditator, uh, only because my mind is so active. I have trouble kind of sitting there and just
Right.
not thinking or just observing the thoughts, but being able to stop and reset and kind of get into a flow. And this actually kind of ties into the first question you said about an elite mindset, because the elite mindset to me, and you could probably speak to this better than me. I know this is your area of expertise, but what I've started to learn recently is that it's not so much about like go, 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 and just knocking out these tasks, but almost being able to get into a flow, right? So you talked about that to-do list just kind of piles up. I got a million different things that I'm gonna be doing right now later today. But
Sick.
rather than getting overwhelmed to being like, oh my God, this huge list, I'm never gonna get to it. It's just like, all right, let me just lock in, like I'm in the middle of a game. This is my assignment. Let me just do this and this and this and just go from one thing to another. So I think the top two habits has been something, I'll even set reminders on my phone, like every 45 minutes, every hour, just to like this alarm's going off and it takes me back and I'll be like, all right, where am I at based on what I said I was going to do today? Let me reset, reframe everything, and then dive back in. And then sure enough, the next hour I have another alarm going off. So that's one of them. And then just making a habit of really taking my personal development seriously, man. So I fall asleep every night reading. I have a stack of books nightstand. I'm going to sleep reading something. I don't look at my phone, but it just allows me to go to sleep in a peaceful space and then wake up in a peaceful space and be in control of everything I'm doing throughout the day from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. So
Perfect. No, and two things on that. One, I give myself a 50-minute window to work, 10 minutes to not. That's one of my big keys on that.
I love
And,
it.
and when we talk about meditation, I feel like that gets such a bad rap sometimes. If you got to sit there and hear, where, man, I meditate when I drive. I turn on some music and just let my mind wander, right? What do I need to get
Right.
through? What am I feeling? How do I feel? Why am I feeling this? And that gives me the time to kind of reconnect with myself, whether that's working out in the mornings, driving, like I said. Those are how I meditate, right? I take the, if I got to work at 7, I get up at 6:30 and I give myself a 15-minute window where it's just me. Maybe I'm getting ready for that day, but I throw some music on, whether that's headphones or out loud, and just it's me time. That's how I meditate and reflect and get myself in a good mindset. But I think it's absolutely crucial for what we do, because if not, the work burnout will kick in, right? If you sit there and you're like, hey, I have 100 things I got to get done today, all right, and then go. There's no, you're going to hit that work burnout. You're going to sit at your computer and get that, if you're writing a book, being an author, that writer's block that comes with it. And when I was putting
Hmm.
together this program, that's what I was running into, because I wanted it to be perfect the first time. So as I'm writing this out, I'm like, I don't like that right now. And then I'd stop and try to think about what I needed to do. Next thing I know, I just wasted 20 minutes trying to figure out one thing, where I started to learn, hey, just write it down and go, almost like a brain dump out. And then I can come back and review. And that's taken out kind of the writer's block, or the mental block that comes into anything. As well as with work, it's 45 minutes to 50 minutes straight work, right? If I got to turn off my phone, whatever it is, I have a routine, I have some habits that are in there. And then I take that 10 to 15 minutes of me, whether I'm doing laundry, I'm cooking food, I'm eating lunch. But again, that's that me time where I can keep my performance at an 8 to 10, rather than I start the day at 8, I work in, from 10 to 12, it's a 10. And then when I get to 2 to 5, it's a 0, because I'm just burnt out. It
Right.
keeps me in that kind of 8 to 10 mode where I can go through and just crush what needs to happen on that and make it work. But man, I love it. You're
I
getting
love
me
it too,
fired
man.
up.
I was gonna say, man, you got me fired up over here. I'm like, I'm ready to go, man. And just a quick note on that, man. I love how you described it as when you're driving or when you're working out or something, because I think that's a good point you bring up. That meditation doesn't have to be just sitting there with your legs crossed. It's just really having control over your mind, which is what your work is all about, And so I think that active meditation works really well for athletes. Me being in the shower is a form of meditation because I'm just letting my mind go, processing, going for a run. Like you said, I'll be in the car half the time, man. I don't even listen to music or podcasts anymore. I'm just driving around, just letting my mind go, letting it go where it wants to go. And half the time, some great stuff comes up, man. So I love
Right.
that you touched on that.
No.
Active meditation, man. That's key.
And it not only is it good for the body, but for me, it's the soul, man. The connection between mind and body has been so key. And not to get too off topic, but I remember I was doing an off-season job at Lululemon, right? Basically, I wanted the discount for the clothes, and I needed some income in the off season, so it was perfect. And I found out that they allowed you to go and work out 3 times a week, and they would pay for it. But I had a gym where that was taken care of, where I was given some lessons, right? Kind of a trade for trade on that. And I started to get into yoga. And again, big, muscular, meathead at the time type mindset into it. And I started going once a week and my body started to feel a little bit better. So I started to go 2 times a week. And all of a sudden I was going 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And when I got to Friday, it took me about 3 sessions in a row, right? That whole week. But the mind body connection that came with that was incredible and honestly changed my life.
Mm.
Something that I do miss. And one thing that I do love is swimming. I get in the pool and I can't be on my phone. I can't be bothered during that time. It's just me in the water, working on my strokes, working on the breath that comes with that as well. And knowing, hey, I'm tired right now, but I only have 10 more laps. I can do this. Let's focus on one. Boom, I got one done. All right, let's go two. And then all of a sudden breaking it down. So I love the active meditation aspect. I can't just sit there and focus. But one thing I do want to touch on as well, when you talked about reading at night. So when I was in the minor league system, bus rides everywhere, long bus rides, loud bus rides, right? Some people wanted to drink on the back of the bus. Some people wanted to play cards. You know what I mean? But at the same aspect, I needed to train my brain that it was sleep time. And so I found a sleep meditation app and I found the same pillow and I still have it to this day. Where my head hit that pillow and I heard that sleep meditation, it kicked in, hey, it's time to go to bed.
Mm.
And for anyone listening that is struggling with sleep, I beg you to try to find something that works with you that way. Because trying to sleep on a bus, I'm 6'2", and at the time I was like 240, right? I was a big dude, crunched up in the middle of a bus here and uncomfortable. But I needed to sleep because we may have had a day game that next day, and I needed to try to get some type of rest on a 12-hour bus ride. And
Right.
so it took me a little bit, but I figured out if I could throw in some headphones, block out the noise, and just listen to the white noise, whether that was rain, a storm, creek, whatever it may be on that app, it trained my brain that it was time to go to bed. And it's crazy now where it's like, if I don't turn that on, I'm wide awake. And I need to turn it on and go. And it's just something that's ingrained in me now. And honestly, I sleep for the most part pretty well because of that. Um,
hmm
but man, let's dive in. I know you've done this before because everyone has. How do you handle failure?
Um, this is a great question, man. And honestly, I haven't been the best at handling failure over the years. Um, I'll put it to you like this. I think that I had a lot of healing to do after my football career because I felt like my football career as a whole was a failure. So the way I handled that was just uh, reshaping my context around it. And what I mean by it was instead of being like, oh, I didn't do this, this, and this, or I didn't make it to the NFL, what I started to do was, all right, I got to play, I got my education paid for. I got to play the game I love up until, the age of 22, when most people, their career ended after high school. So just being grateful for the opportunity, for the relationships I developed was a great way to reframe it. And I've been able to do that in my everyday life as well. So obviously in business, as you know, there are micro failures that happen, on a day-to-day basis. And the way I handle it is the same way I just told you I handle my playing career by just reframing it and looking at the big picture, looking at the long-term goal. So if anything, and it sounds cliche to say, failure is an opportunity to learn, but I really do live by that mantra. So anytime I have a quote unquote failure, I look at it as, okay, what can I learn from this? And it's almost got to the point where I'm sure you can relate to this, RJ. You almost kind of look forward to those moments. Because if you're just flying high and everything's going well for you, it feels good, but there's not a lot of growth that happens in those
Right.
moments. So in those moments of failure, no matter how small that may be, it's like, good. Now I have something to learn so I can improve and I can bounce back. And next time there's another failure, it's going to just keep taking me higher and higher. So I've reframed failure in my mind as moments to teach myself to learn and to launch myself forward to ultimately become better in some way, shape, or form.
Not roadblocks, pivots, right? Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
may have
I
failed
love it.
at this, but it's going to force me to go a different way on that. Failure happens every day, and especially the kids that I teach, not only on the mental side of stuff, but physically with baseball lessons and things like that. I want them to fail. My job is to
Right.
push them to fail. And I tell this to the parents and the kids that I work at them first. I said, the first time you work with me, you're not going to want to come back. I promise you, because I'm
That's
going to
right.
push you more than you've ever been pushed, more so on the mental side of stuff, right? Because obviously that's where my passion's at and my experience is at. And I said, but don't get it twisted. By about 2 or 3 days, when you haven't seen me, you're gonna ask to want to come back because all of a sudden you're like, hey, I want to learn more. I like this, right? I'm learning and going through that. And it's switching from the aspect of what your result is to what your process is. And if you have a solid process, the percentage wise, your results are going to be where you want them to be at the end of that. And I think the
Mm,
biggest deterrent right now with the kids that I work with, honestly, is the parents don't want them to fail. The kids,
right.
honestly, they don't know, right? They're going out, they're having fun and they're learning, but the parents really don't want them to fail. And so a lot of my job is allowing and teaching the parents that we need them to fail. That's where the most growth happens. And I personally, and most everyone I've talked to, they want it more at an early age so you can learn how to deal with it then rather than you succeed through amateur ball, high school ball, college ball, and you've never hit that failure aspect. And now, if you do get to college and you fail, how do you handle that? Well, I don't know because I've never gone through it. Um,
Right.
and even at the professional level where it's very cutthroat and you don't perform, you're not going to be there anymore. If you've succeeded all the way through and never really hit any roadblocks or failures, now all of a sudden you get to a cutthroat business and you fail. The pressures that mount from that, knowing that at any point you can get called in, hey, you're out. We got 10,000 other kids that we want to try out and you didn't work out, how people are affected by that. And one thing to go back and touch on the depression aspect, man, it's weird. It's like a black cloud of who am I when you get done playing. Like I know who I
Hmm.
was outside of baseball. I knew what I brought to the table and knew what I wanted to bring to the world. But even still, it's like I could have done better. I could have done this better. No, well, I gave it my all. I did this. I started saying no to a lot of like off the field stuff so I could focus on what was going on the field. But at the end of the day, your identity's taken away because you've put in so much time, so much effort, blood, sweat, and tears to get to any point, whether that's high school, college, or professionally. Your identity's ripped away from you, and that's also part of the reason why, through God's gift, I swear we were connected on this because I needed someone to help me through that. um and I wasn't happy with what I was doing in the corporate world. It was a great paycheck, it was a great lifestyle, but the fulfillment that came with that I got from baseball wasn't there anymore. And
Right.
that's why I started giving lessons. And I didn't want to coach because I didn't want to put the time commitment in, but I wanted to help these kids in the knowledge that I had. And the next thing I know, let's see, it's January now. I started this in almost September, kind of on my own, and then full time in December. How much growth I've had in that short amount of time, and finally found my voice outside of baseball, and the fulfillment that I have throughout that has been absolutely incredible. So for me, thank you for helping me along in that journey. And honestly, just being a sounding board, right? Just, hey, I got a thought. It's a negative thought. I need to spew it out. All right, cool. I'm good. I'm ready to go now. Thank you. So I greatly appreciate it. You're very, very good at what you do.
Right. Thank you, man. Well, you know, the thing is, and I'd love to take credit for it, but at the end of the day, like you said, you really just needed a sounding board. And that's kind of what I enjoy about this space that I've been in for several years now is when you and I first connected, I'm thinking, okay, here's this guy, former baseball player, you know, solid dude, has some ideas. You may need some coaching. But as we started like having more conversations, it became clear that you weren't necessarily a fit for my program for me to work with you, but you and I were going to be buddies. Like we're going to be running together, working on projects together. And like you said, man, I don't know how long it's been, but I guess about 6 months since we connected or somewhere around that time frame.
Right.
And just to watch what's unfolding, not only for you, don't get me wrong, I'm proud of everything that you're doing, man. It's awesome.
Appreciate that.
But in your life and my life, and in the things we've been working on together, man, you know, we got several things we've already collaborated on and we'll continue to collaborate on things. So like you said, man, we were put in each other's lives for a reason. And it's been great, man. I enjoy our conversations because I know that we're not just, you know, shooting the breeze. We're talking and something's going to come from it every single time. So that excites me too, man.
Right. It's a
You know,
deeper conversation than just surface level of, hey, how are you doing? Cool. Yo, I'll talk to you when I talk to you again. No, it's like, hey, I got an idea. What do you think about this? This is where I want to run. And, I would say in the aspect of career wise, especially being an entrepreneur, obviously you're a little bit ahead of where I am. So almost a mentorship of, hey, am I on the right track here? Because right now it's just me in the basement running around. So
right.
right, all these things I say, these walls yell at me a lot, and get my own head and things like that. So it's nice when I do have a sounding board and realize that I'm not going crazy with my thoughts and anything like that. So again, thank you. And with that, and I know you've had some recent success on that. How do you handle success, right? We know how we handle failure sometimes, but I think on the flip side of that, how do we handle success? Because that could be a double-edged sword.
Hmm. Um, to me, the way I handle success is it motivates me to keep pushing. It's just like affirmation, right? You talked about when you're in that room and it's the wall screaming at you, and you're like, "Am I doing the right thing? You know, is this really worth it? Is this ever going to take off?" I think what success brings is not like, I made it, where I can just relax. Not that there's not a space for celebrating the success and enjoying that, but being like, okay, I'm on the right path. So, you know, once again, back to that athletic elite mindset. The only thing to do is to keep going, and the success just brings affirmation. And yeah, man, I think another thing that I've learned recently, and I've almost had to force myself to celebrate because, you know, you and I are both type A guys, very driven. So
Always.
you reach a milestone and it's easy to just be like, okay, I got that, but what about this, and this, versus being like, man, I'm going to take a moment to just be proud of myself. That's something that I've really had to lean into. Um, I'm sorry, man, I got off base. Your original question was what lessons have I learned from success?
No, how do you handle it? Because
Oh, how do I
yeah, you see some people where it's failure,
handle it?
failure,
Okay.
failure, and all of a sudden they have success, and they may change as a person, or they may just sit on that success, and it may be great for a time period of maybe a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it may be. But at some point, you got to be able to fall back on something else. I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago. Met this gentleman through some friends. We started talking, and he asked me. I was wearing my JW5 shirt, and he asked me what it was, and told him that I was starting this business, and this is what I wanted to do. And he started laughing, and he goes, "Man, I envy you." And it kind of took me aback. I said, "All right, like let's dive into this a little bit." And he goes, "You found something you're passionate about." He goes, "I
Mm-hmm.
just sold my tech company for millions of dollars." And he goes, "Don't get me wrong, I'm very happy and glad of the success I have, but I'm type A too. So I need to find something that I want to do next here in the next year, right? I'm going to kind of take a year off and then get back into something." But he goes, "I envy you because I want to find something I'm passionate about." He goes, "I wasn't passionate
Mm.
about the tech." He goes, "But that's what I knew. And I knew I could make some money on that. So I started a company, built it out for 12 years and sold it." And he goes, "I could retire and be fine financially, but," he goes, "I know my body and my mind won't allow me to do that." So he goes, "My next goal within this next year is to find something that I'm truly passionate about and let that run the tail end of my career from there on out." So I always like asking people these questions because everyone has a different idea of it, of how they want to go about it. And I think not only should we understand failure and have or have a foundation of how to handle it, but I think the same idea of success, where if you just want to sit on that that platform of success, you're going to get knocked down at some point. And how do you handle that from there? So, man,
Right.
I greatly appreciate what you said on that. I know we talked about a little bit of some habits, things like that. What's a good routine, or what's an important routine that you have to keep you in that elite mindset?
Definitely, I gotta say exercise, man. And this goes back to active meditation. So I have a like my life basically looks like this. I wake up before the sun and like 5:30 every morning. And well, this is just my routine in whole. This is what keeps me in that elite mindset. I wake up before the sun, I do a little reading, a little, go over some notes, maybe journaling. And from there, I'm just kind of diving into my workday for a few hours. But I feel like the highlight of my day, the thing I look forward to the most, like I'm probably going to do this after this interview. I split the day up around noontime with a workout. And what that does is it's almost like I'm starting the day over again. I'm able to process everything I did that morning, come back from the workout, get my cold shower in, and then I'm jumping into what there is to do for the rest of the day and then mapping out the next day. So just having that, to sum it up, man, I think just having that structure and
Mhm.
finding a structure that works for me, obviously that's not going to be the same for the next person, but that structure keeps me in a rhythm. And when I hold myself accountable to staying in that rhythm and doing the things I said I'm going to do, even when I don't feel like doing it, that's what keeps me in that elite mindset, because it's like we always talk about, man. It's doing those things in the dark so that all the success can be shown in the light. But me being able to stay in that, man, keeps me in that mindset, because I'm like, all right, you checked all the boxes. You did everything you said you were going to do today, Taj. So as I lay my head on the pillow at night, it's like, you know, good job. Pat yourself on the
Yeah,
back. Keep doing your
absolutely.
thing, man.
One thing that Damian Lillard said, he said, if you want to perform in front of thousands, you have to outperform thousands when no one's watching on that. And something
I love it.
that's always stuck with me. And now I'm starting to get a little bit more involved in social media, getting my face out there, getting the message out there. But man, they don't know what I just went through for the 6 months to set this all up, get this thing going, the networking that had to happen on that. Everyone sees the final product, right? They don't see you
Hmm.
getting up at 5:30 because that's when you need to get up to be your most successful. For me, it's anywhere between 5:30 and 6. Usually my alarm goes off at 5:30 and I'm up by 6. I like that little time in between to not want to get up and fight myself a little bit. But yeah, I love what you said on the aspect of finding what works for you, right? All these, self motivation books or motivational, either podcasts, whatever it may be. It's like I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like I can't do that. I'm a night owl. So if I can get up at 6 o'clock, that gives me almost 18 hours throughout the day to be able to be successful on that, right? And I
Hmm.
usually go to bed anywhere between like 10 and 11, and I'm up anywhere between 5:30 and 6 most every day, and that's what works for me. That's where I get the most success out of myself on that, rather than, oh, I can sleep in till 8 because I don't really have anything to do per se, or a timeline to hit. And that's where the self growth comes from on that, right? Being able to sit down and be like, hey, how do I work the best on this? So again, I can give the best out to anyone that I work with or talk to or help out throughout the day. So, dude, I'm right with you on that. I love it. You
Thank you, man.
I know you had a chance to look over the program that I'm setting up, the little mental ninja program.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that? And then which staple, and I know we talked about a little bit, do you think is the most important on that?
See, this is very difficult for me, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this beforehand, but I'm gonna let you know, man. I thought the program was phenomenal.
I
Um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
and you're very welcome. And I mean, it's not like I was surprised. Let's be real. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. I know what you're about. You were on the panel. You brought the heat on the Athlete to Entrepreneur panel a couple of months ago, or whenever that was. So I wasn't surprised with the content inside the Mental Ninja program was fire. I expected it to be. But the reason I said that it's difficult for me is because of this very reason. Everything's interconnected, right? So for me to say I really like this part, um, that's tough, because as I'm reading through it, I'm like, oh, that's how this connects to this. And I think you did a great job of the flow as well. I'm very big on that, man. Like even with my transition coaching curriculum, it's a flow. It's not just like, nothing is put in there by accident. So it's the same with your mental ninja program. It wasn't like you just got a bunch of stuff thrown together. There's a progression. Um, each step leads into the next step. So I know it may seem like I'm ducking the question, but this is just the way my mind works.
No, not
So
at
for
all.
me to pick
I
something
appreciate
out,
that.
If you want to, man, let me just pick something just for the sake of answering your question, man. Uh, I really like well, this is kind of integrated into a few different sections, but I really like the awareness component, right? And like I said, this isn't just one section because there's awareness kind of sprinkled throughout and it's all tied in together. But I think that that's the key to everything that we've been talking about here so far. Because in order for you to tap into your elite mindset, in order for you to have structure set up for yourself, in order for you to bounce back from failure, reframe failure, or be able to handle success, it all comes down to having awareness. So anything that you have in your program, uh, just the way you outlined awareness to kind of set the tone first and foremost, so that they're able to, whoever's going through the program is able to keep that in the back of their mind as they're going through the rest of the steps. I think that was the part that stood out to me the most, man, because most people, as we know, even athletes, are not as self-aware as they could be. So if you're able to kind of tap in or just solidify your awareness of yourself and of the world around you and your internal workings, then you're able to kind of go to higher levels with anything that you're doing. So I'd say that, man, just the awareness component was the part that jumped out to me the most overall.
No, you're 100% right. Right. We want to talk about inner motivation, self discipline, elite habits, process oriented, elite routines, self positive talk, and interfaith. All of that has to come from the awareness. You got to be able to sit there and
100%.
understand your body, understand your mind, how you work. And now all of a sudden you can go, all right, this is where my motivation comes from. This is where my self discipline comes from, right? But it all starts with awareness. So I appreciate you understanding that the whole program is basically built off of the self awareness. And now we can start to break that down into smaller details to be able to give us a really good roadmap to an elite mindset and keep that elite mindset, right? It's just like someone that wants to lose weight, right? And they go to the gym for a week and they crush their body. But now all of a sudden, when Monday comes back around, they can't go because they're so sore, right? So they go, I'm going to take one day off. But that felt really good. So Tuesday comes like, maybe I'll just take 2 days off. And then that turns into a week, that turns into a month where the awareness aspect of no, even if I'm sore, I need to get up and go to the gym. That's the hardest part. Once you're at the gym, you're good. Even if you just stretch, even if you just walk around, whatever it may be, all of a sudden you're doing something that's positive for yourself. But again, it's the self awareness that kicks in. And that's the whole embodiment of the program on how to teach you self awareness. And then from there, how do we stay process oriented, right? Because I look at what I'm doing now and it's like, it's not where I want to be yet. But like you said, I need to take a step back and reflect and be like, man, in the last month, how much I've grown, how much I'm starting to do now, right? And celebrate those little successes that are along the way. And I think for me, the biggest thing in that is teaching anyone that goes through the program is where all your joy comes from is the journey. It's not the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right? If this thing turns into a multi-million dollar business, great. I can help support my family and take care of any needs they have. But what I'm going to enjoy the most out of everything on that is the process of where I started with an idea and how that grew and where that led me to. And the roadblock I hit here, which brought me to here. And that's where I flourished. And I think that's one thing that, especially nowadays in an instant gratification world, is taken away.
Right.
We lose sight of where the joy comes from, and it's the process, man. I can't tell you how many games I won in pro ball. I can't tell you how many games I won at Ole Miss, but I can tell you about the people that I went through and the struggles I went through and the things that we overcame together that way. That's where all
Mm-hmm.
the joy comes from in the lifelong relationships. When you're in the trenches with someone like that, man, it's a different bond that people don't truly understand unless you've been through it.
That's it, man. And just on that note, the crazy part is you and I have never met in person, but we've been in the trenches together for 6 months. You know what I mean? We already got that
Yeah.
bond because, bro, we're in the trenches together, like right now, building something, trying to have an impact on that next generation of athletes, and not just athletes, but just people in general. And yeah, man, this just another quick note on your program too. I just want to say this. It kind of goes back to what you were saying at the beginning with how um, the kids, right? Like you want the kids to fail that you coach, and it may be difficult at first, but then a few days goes by and they're going back to it. One of the things that I know I already touched on this, but I don't want to. I want to take a deeper dive on this because I think it's so important. The structure. A lot of people, man, everybody has a program nowadays, right? So I'm including myself in that. Everybody has a program, and a lot of people, when you see it, it's just a bunch of stuff that they've taken from other places and kind of jumbled together. But I really want to just stay focused on this point of that everything that is going on in your program really it is there's a structure in place that I think shouldn't it can't be overstated, right? Because like this, I told you this is how my mind works too. I'm looking at your program and I'm like, man, this is I see what you're doing. It goes from point A to point B, but you can only give it to people in small bits. Otherwise, people will just look at it as a whole and be like, oh man, well, I just want to get to the end result, like you said, instead of focusing on the journey. And I'm imagining myself, okay, if I was to only do this, and I imagine myself going through it, and then I look at the next one, and then I look up at the end of it, and I'm like, okay, I see why RJ did this. You know, you had the end result in mind, but you reverse engineered it and made sure that you were being intentional throughout. So I know I
Right.
already spoke on that, but I just wanted to be clear because that's something I appreciated the most about it, like that structure, because it shines through as I'm reading through the material. You know what I mean?
No, and absolutely. And not only is this going to help with the program itself, but just me personally, it's nice to hear other thoughts, right? Like I said, when I go through this program and I look at it, I'm like, ugh, maybe I could do this, or you know what I mean? The type A mindset of it. But to
Mm-hmm.
have other people speak on it and see what I was trying to do on it that way, that that brings me fulfillment and success in what I did. Whether I sell 10 million of them or one, I know that I've created a program that's going to help you step by step through this journey and understand that you're not in it alone. Everyone goes through this. And this is a structure that's going to help you along the way through it. So I greatly appreciate you seeing, through the surface level of the text on it and how it's set up to help not only these kids, but anyone. Honestly, I know it's the Mental Ninja program, but I always think of ninjas as this inner confident, the skill set that they have that they're not to be messed with. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I wanted to bring in the ninja aspect with it, right? It's very, mind, body, soul connection together with the skill set that I have that I can overcome anything thrown my way on that. So yeah, it's
That's right.
it's focused towards more so the kids that I work with and helping them get a foundation for the failure that they're going to go through. But man, this goes through all the way through life, adults, teenagers, whatever it may be. It's all applicable in that. And I think that's why I love this skill set so much is it's not pigeonholed into one certain area of sports. Now I learned it through sports, but how it obtains every other aspect, whether you want to talk about business, relationships, sports, whatever you may go through, it's basically, finding a way to get 1% better every day and be the best that you can that day. And one thing I always talk about is I may feel like I only have 50% when I go out to that mound that day, but I'm going to give
Mm-hmm.
100% of that 50% I have and how I'm going to work through that. And the days that I know I have 100% and I give 100% of that, those are the days that live on forever in your mind and you go through. So, man, I greatly appreciate you taking the time here. To wrap up, just one thing, any type of words of advice and or, this is your platform to talk about, what you're doing and a little bit of self-promotion here. So anything you want to say, the floor is yours.
Well, words of advice: tap in with that mental ninja program. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Tap in
appreciate
with
that.
RJ first and foremost. And yeah, man. Please also check out my podcast. RJ, with your permission, man, I would love to post this episode of my podcast as well because I think my audience needs to hear your message.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and shameless plug for anybody listening. If you're not listening on Thrive After Sports, check out my podcast, Thrive After Sports, available on all podcast platforms. The goal is exactly what it sounds like. It's called Thrive After Sports. So I'm sharing tidbits from my coaching, sharing information to help athletes transition to figure out the next chapter of their lives. Got a lot of great people on there, a lot of great guests like RJ. If you go back to, I want to say it's episode 73 or 74 or something like that, got a panel on there called Athlete to Entrepreneur 2. Look for Athlete to Entrepreneur 2 because there's about 3 or 4 of them on there now. RJ's on there. He brought the heat as expected. He was a panelist on the Athlete to Entrepreneur panel, the second one, and he just knocked it out of the park. So everybody, please go check that out
No,
and get a chance.
absolutely.
Also, just dropping gems as always.
Yeah, whatever
Oh,
you
sorry.
need
Go ahead,
on
RJ.
whatever you need on my end, please let me know. And obviously, when I get this thing up on YouTube and send out, I'll make sure I have a link to all of your stuff on there as well. Tag you in it and make sure the message gets out not only to your network and my network. Basically, I just want to help people, and I know you want to do the same. So if we can get both of our messages out and even collaborate together on that, man, it's a win-win for all of us. So, like I said, I greatly appreciate your time coming on. I know time's the most valuable thing in this world to give someone. Obviously, just more than thankful. And man, I look forward to working with you more here.
Same, brother. We're just getting warmed up. Thank you, RJ. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.